Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Orgullo Hispano. My name is Hector, your host, and welcome to this podcast provided by the Hispanic Leaders Network. We thank you so much for joining us today. And before I introduce my guests, I would like to take this time to thank really our sponsor, the Office of External Affairs from Baylor University, for being our gracious sponsor during this podcast. We are so delighted and so grateful for their sponsorship and their partnership and all the work that we do. But at this time, I would like to introduce my guest for this afternoon. It is Andreas Zalousmis, the proud owner of Thrst Coffee. And if you haven't been by there, I would highly recommend that you go by there. In fact, they have some of the best coffee that you will have in the city, locally owned. But there's also a cool story to it. And so before I talk too much, Andreas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Man, thank you so much for having me.
It is an honor to have you on the show, sir. I know we've been talking about it for a while, but really, I mean, I've been a fan of yours for years now, sir, knowing the work that you do in the community and, of course, a father and a husband to a beautiful family, a proud business owner. How do you do it all, man? Question, how do you do it all?
Man, honestly, like you said, it's been a built up thing over time. Mm-hmm. We've run into each other for years now, and that's how I'm doing it. It's just people like you, support from the community, and just encouraging me to keep going. So I would like to, we're going to get to Thrst Coffee here in a little bit. I want the audience to know a little bit about you. So give us some background of you. I know you're not originally from the Central Texas area, but how you got here, and then some of the projects that you've really been involved in. Okay. A little bit about me. I am 33 years old.
Youngin'.
I know you say that, but every day I'm like, I don't know, I'm getting closer to it. Yeah, no. But I'm grateful for it. My birthday is March 10th. It just happened. So
Happy belated birthday, sir.
Thank you. Married, I have a wife, Bianca Zalousmis, 3 kids, and been in Waco for 4 years. Personally, my background, I'm African, so I was born in Zambia, and I lived in Mozambique, and I came over to the States when I was 11. Okay.
Did you come over with family, with your parents?
Yeah. Okay. My dad was working. He had some work he was doing in the U.S., so that's kind of how we came here.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Go ahead.
So that's kind of just like the beginning. Spent majority of my upbringing in the DMV area of Washington, Virginia. And then from there, after high school and pursuing my wife to, our college town, we moved to Houston, and that was 2014. And from Houston, we were there for about 4 years. And then after that, we moved to Waco. So we've been in Waco since 2018.
So what brought you to Waco initially?
It was the wanting to escape the Houston life,
big city life.
Big city life. I've always had this this inclination myself to want to work for myself. Didn't really know that at the time, but I wanted to just do things that were fulfilling to me. And so I didn't see that happening in Houston. Okay. And my wife was working full-time, mechanical engineer.
Wow.
And she was working a lot, and we just realized that was not what we wanted, or what we were ready for, if anything. And we just had our kid, our first kid.
So how old is the first kid now? How old are your kiddos?
She's 9.
9. So.
Yeah. So Cora, oldest, she is 9. Second born Maeve, she is 3, about to be 4. And then the littlest one, Dre, he is 2.
Oh my goodness, all ages.
All ages, so yeah.
But a beautiful family, man. I follow you on social media, and I love honestly, the relationship that you have with your wife and your kiddos, I think it is so important, especially as men, to have that relationship with your children and to really cherish them. You know, people tell me all the time, don't blink because it really goes by fast, and it does, right?
It does. And like you can take it for granted, and it's just like you can always try to catch up and like, hey, I'll be there that one time, but it's like there's so much that happens in between when you realize that, and you know, so yeah.
Well, I also know you have a passion and a love for coffee, and I want to talk about how did that develop? Where did that come from?
Yeah. And this is me being 100 with you.
Please.
I love coffee, and I love the thing that coffee makes happen, which is gathering people together. And like, especially in the American culture, coffee shops are a big deal. And I worked in coffee for 7 years, and that's where I figured that like I got that like,
sure,
I'm good at this. I can do this, and I understand it to a certain degree. But I'm more of a creative. I'm more of an artist that happens to have a coffee shop. And
I love
in order to bring some of the things to fruition that I've done here in the city, just in my life, Thrst was part of it. It was the coffee cart. It was popping up at Cultivate. It was the farmers market, getting to interact with people. So yeah, I love the coffee. I enjoy producing a good product. But at the end of the day, I think there's another alternative to the coffee shop.
Sure.
You know, so.
Well, you know, I think it's funny you bring up, you know, having your cart at Cultivate, because that's the first time I remember meeting you.
Exactly.
Going in there and talking about you. And then the story that you had of how you really, like you said, an artist, but with an artist in general, but also you put that artistry skills in doing your coffee, because you really make your own coffee, correct?
Yeah.
So I think that's cool that not too many people know that about you, I would say, or not too many people do that, at least here in Central Texas.
So yeah, I am roasting my coffee, and I've always, and that's the artist in me, is like, if I'm gonna do something, I wanted to have my stamp on it. I want my hands to touch it and be able to know the ins and outs of what I'm giving out.
Sure.
So I can feel good about it.
Right.
And so thinking about growth in coffee, it was like, yeah, we could be buying coffee off the shelf or off online, or I could take the time and be in it and make it this beautiful thing. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And so that has evolved over the years. To where earlier this year you opened up your brick and mortar, located on Concord, Thrst Coffee. Tell us about that experience and what that has been like preparing for the grand opening, and then how business has been since you've opened.
I think, like you said, we first met in Cultivate, and that was a great like stepping point for me to be able to just test the theory and engage with people. Then we went into the farmers market, and that helped us grow, and we did catered events, and that helped us grow. So at every point, like if I had it my way, I would have just wanted a coffee shop out the gate, you know, but we couldn't really afford to do that. So we had those stepping stones that we had to go through, and then the pandemic happened. And so we shut down public operations to just focus on roasting coffee. Which was frustrating. You know, you have this idea of like, this is where we're going to head to, but in every point you're hitting like walls.
Right.
But yeah, essentially all those things helped me feel comfortable to be able to then this year launch the business and say, I understand the moving parts in my business, and I'm willing to take this risk. So it surprisingly felt more calm and less nerve-wracking. I'm less scared to take the risk and all those things, because I feel like I have a good understanding of how I want to grow the business and how it can be grown. So
now, I know in speaking with a few business owners, especially business owners that really, when the pandemic hit, found it difficult to pivot, and you might be on a trajectory, but then of course operations shut down for a year and a half, 2 years, and we talked with them about the frustrations of sometimes starting a business, that it's not always as glam as people may think it is. With those frustrations, was there ever a point when you thought, this is too much, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm ready to throw in the towel? What was that experience like?
Yes to all of that. Yes, like no lie. Yes to, and it came in waves, man, and it came at different times, and I think that's just the journey of entrepreneurship. That's the journey of being an artist, is like you're putting things out in the world, and it's not always great, but the validation is when people like are either purchasing it or validate, you know what I mean? Like you need outside validation.
Absolutely.
When that's not happening, everything just seems like, what's the point?
Right. You question everything, right?
Everything is questioned, and then you're facing natural things that you have no control over.
Right.
No one does.
Right.
So yeah, multiple times every year, there's at least at a point where I'm just like reevaluate everything, and I'm like, does this still make sense? Like I have a family. Does this make sense for my family?
And I'm assuming there are days when you spend hours or most of the day away from your family because you're handling the business. But what it is, that internal thing within you that keeps you motivated, that keeps you going? How do you keep yourself from throwing in the towel?
It's the appreciation of like holding on to when those good times come around, and when you have the flexibility to be there for your family, and you ultimately you feel like life is not just happening to you, but you're taking action. Like where you can be there for your daughter, you can be there for your wife. She's having a hard day. If bringing the kids to the coffee shop and seeing them learn the application of working hard and getting to build community, and like I go around and people know my kids, you know, and I know that they'll be looking out for them as well, because it's happened already, those are the things that keep me going, and say that like I value this, and I don't want to put myself or my family in a position where I'm sacrificing these kinds of relationships or these moments because of security, financial security. I want to be able to like look at my kids and say, dream big.
There you go.
And they know that.
There you go.
It means work hard, work hard for what you want. And, And
dream big, I think, because I say that to my kids also. And I think you probably would agree with this. It's also saying you can do anything.
Literally.
There are no limits.
Literally.
In fact, we want our kids to be better than us in life, right? And so I always tell my baby boy, dream big, baby boy, because you have no limits.
I've started like trying to figure out ways to tell my kids these things, and one of the ways I think about it is that as like kids, like you see kids and they're playing, right? And they can create, and they can be a race car driver or a nurse or whatever. And as you grow up, you get away from that. But growing up really is just like you're still playing.
Correct.
I want to be a engineer. I want to be
an artist,
right? And it's like you just have to learn how to play that game.
There you go.
And play the game better every day.
There you go.
If you want to play something else, you can do it, but you're gonna have to learn to play that game. So it's refined, so it makes sense, and it has a structure. I
love that analogy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the coffee shop a little bit. So Thrst. I know it's an acronym. So tell us what the acronym is for.
Yeah, so it is Third Space Theory Coffee.
Okay.
And why Third Space Theory? Thinking about our journey and our connections, even Cultivate, Rebecca, who is the owner of Cultivate, and Jeremy, a husband, were really close friends of ours and helped us bring this idea to life, because they had the space and they saw something in us and they wanted us to pursue it. We talked about the coffee shop, the concept, and really they invited us over, I think, their house for dinner, and they were like, what if you just because my idea was get a storefront, get a physical location. She was like, why don't you just open up a stand or something? And I'm like, nah,
that's not what I want to do.
Do that. What are you talking about? And but she really proposed the name Third Space. She was like, what do you think about that? And I think it's just seeing what we were looking for and what we were able to do within the time she had known us. And I was like, okay, I'll like it. And then I just did some research on just what's Third Space, and came about there's actually a theory that as humans, we not just want, but we crave this third space to build community, to be part of something that is outside your home, which is your first space, and then your work, which is your second space. Bars, libraries, wherever multiple people gather. You don't have to know each other, but you're still existing. And so
I've never heard of that before. That is amazing.
Yeah. So that's Third Space Theories is really just the culture that we are aiming to build with Thirst, is just a space for anyone and everyone to exist, and just bring different perspective into Waco.
Right. Well, and I want you to also tell us, what can people expect when they go to Thirst? And there might be some that maybe have never been. What can they expect when they walk through the doors?
Yeah, a very calm atmosphere, very calm. I think of Thirst when I was putting this together is I want people to walk into my home and feel comfortable and be able to just go to a coffee shop and just sit. You don't have to meet with anybody, and it feels normal, organic. So yeah, the furniture is there for you to relax on and just hang out. The music has some upbeat, some soul, some
which I love, by the way.
It's just a different tempo. It's just putting you on this wavelength of just calm and ease. And then all my coworkers that work with me, the baristas, are all pleasant, very helpful, and they're all able to have conversation beyond just your work, beyond what you look like. It's the conversations that happen there are just progressive, and encouraging, and they're pouring into people, and the same is happening back.
And what I also, to all of that, because as you know, I think I have a little addiction with Thirst because I'm in there probably weekly. But also what I love is the menu items, that they are something at Thirst that you will not find anywhere else. And a lot of those drinks that we can order at Thirst pay homage to the Latino culture as well. For example, this Café de Olla, which by far my favorite of here. And so how did those
definitely a favorite.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, it is addicting for sure. But how did you come up with the menu items to try to really, because I think that's what really stands you out, is what you offer on the menu.
Yeah, so I think if you've been in Waco, you know that Lalo's Coffee existed and was here for 2 years. I helped in the back end of that and kind of bringing that to fruition. But ultimately, it had a good, flavorful menu, and it was traditional, and it exposed cultural appreciation, and the community loved it. So yeah, it was just realizing that, being in Lalo's and seeing people come back day after day, and they were mind blown by the recipes and the syrups that we were putting together, was encouraging. Opening Thirst, I was like, I have to. I was like, I would be shooting myself in the foot if I didn't, But yeah, everything, all the syrups that we offer are either made in-house or we partner with somebody locally to provide that. And
I love that. I love
the
that.
uniqueness.
Yes.
I like, again, it's the artistry in me is that I don't want to just have the same vanilla that this place is having. Like I want to have a different vanilla. We have a brown sugar, we have the cafe de olla, we have a Mexican mocha. We have a ginger mint, like a cascara syrup. Like all these things are made in-house and they make it unique. And so that you come there, it's worth it. You're getting this experience.
Absolutely.
We don't have a lot of parking, so you're getting this experience that you had to walk over for.
But it's worth it.
It's worth it.
But it's definitely worth it.
Well, at least I hope so.
It is. Yeah. It is. From a consumer point of view, it is definitely worth it. And man, you said something so powerful that it is either done in-house or you partner with other local businesses to make it happen. Yes. And as we all know, while we're very appreciative of our chains and our big box stores that are here in our community, but I've always said that the local businesses are the backbone of our community. Yeah. And so for us to support local businesses, I think it should be intentional on our part. It should be easy on our part, but it also should be something that we encourage others to do as well, because you live in the community that we live in.
And man, like having a business or trying to start a business here in Waco has really opened up my eyes in the reliance that you can put into a community, and less on the big man or the big businesses or cha community, helados. Yep. You know what I mean? Alpha Omega. Like these are anywhere from Pinewood, Dichotomy, all these businesses I've interacted with at some point and have helped me at some point. And that's not even as just a consumer, but as a business owner. Sure. There's like beauty in that, and there's collaborations that can happen and growth that can happen. So because I'm starting a business, I don't always participate in other businesses because it's just time. But when you can work with them on the back end, it's like it just is beautiful, I think.
So Andreas, I want to ask you two more questions before we end. Number one, what are if you can share some plans that you have for Thrst, and where do you see it going in a couple years, 5 years down the road, etc.?
Yeah, that's cool. Thrst Coffee, again, is more than just the coffee. Sure. And that's something I've really tried to hold on to as you think about growing a business. About that ticket, the ticket price and turnover on how fast you can get the product out in order to increase revenue. But what I really would love for Thrst is to be a space and people to know it as a space for all and for anything to happen. I love it. That was something I looked for when I first moved into Waco. Was I just wanted to create and I wanted to host events and I wanted to try these different things, or just a space that I felt comfortable in, and I knew that the people that were there were rooting for me. Sure. So I want Thrst to be that. So right now, things that are happening are poetry nights on the third Thursday of the month. Okay. And actually, the next one's going to be coming up this Thursday. Wow. Did I say Saturday? I'm getting
Thursday. Thursday.
Yes. So we have poetry nights on the third Thursday of the month.
In the evening.
In the evening, okay. Yes. So it's from 6:30. There's a writer's workshop that happens. And then after that, is like an open mic. And you're able to go up if you'd like. But there's normally a featured artist. I love that. But that's also a collaboration with somebody that's in the community. And her name is April. Big poet in the community already. And I'm just making that space available.
I love that.
There's been birthday parties being rented out. There's meetings for organizations that happen after hours, so people rent them out. So beyond just like the transactional coffee, there's like growth, tangible growth that's happening, making it possible for people to meet and to make other things happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question. For someone who's looking at this episode and is thinking of starting their own business, whether it's a coffee shop, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a retail store, what are some words of wisdom? I'm a firm believer that when we do things in life, sometimes we have to learn the hard way, and hopefully that for those that are coming up behind us, we make it a little easier for them, so they can learn from our mistakes possibly.
Yeah.
What are some words of wisdom that you can share with some of those that are thinking about starting their own business?
Yeah. Man, there's a lot. There's a lot.
But if you could pick two things.
It was like, honestly, the simplest thing I could say is changing the perspective on failure. Like looking at it as failure means that you get to now know that you need to learn something. Sometimes you're like, what do I need to learn? What do I need to know in order for me to take action on this thing? First step is take that action. The second is when you take it, whether you succeed, and that's subjective,
right,
or you fail, which you'll know when you fail, that is just that you need to do everything in your power the next time to learn from this feeling that you have right now, and it won't happen again.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing perspective, because I think, in my opinion, even my wife and I have a few businesses that we handle. Sometimes we look at when things don't go our way as failure, but it really isn't. It's just learning how to change our perspective.
Exactly.
And sometimes it takes time and effort to do that.
Yes. And like I said, like my journey for now having this location is that I've had a lot of failures. I've doubted myself a lot. And even when other people are like, dude, you're doing great, you're succeeding, I'm like, you just don't understand. You don't see it. Yeah, there's like so many things that I'm working on and nervous about, but I wouldn't be here.
Right.
I wouldn't have the coffee shop.
Right.
If I didn't continue after those failures.
There you go. There you go.
That's the one thing I think is important. It's just the perspective, changing your perspective, viewing things as life lessons.
There
literally.
you go.
Like you can take anything away from everything you do,
whether good or bad.
Yep.
Andreas, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been an honor, man. And I'm so glad that we finally got to sit down and talk.
Me too.
A lot more than just entrepreneurship, but about family and community. And so thank you so much for taking time out, because I know you're terribly busy. And so truly, I want you to know that with us as HLN, you have a fan, and we want to support and help however we can. Okay.
It's much appreciated, man. Thank you for always supporting and always being there.
Of course.
Being an advocate for not just Thrst, but for me, like me as a person.
Yes,
I think you see something,
Absolutely.
and I appreciate that. So
we believe in you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you once again to all of our listeners out there. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Orgullo Hispano. Stay tuned for the next one that we're going to put out. But also, I would be remiss not to thank our sponsors again, the Office of External Affairs from Baylor University. We thank them again for their continued partnership. And until next time, please take care.
This episode of Orgullo Hispano was made possible through the generosity of these sponsors. The Hispanic Leaders Network is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Our vision is to develop and empower current and future leaders to make a difference in the community. To sponsor a future Orgullo Hispano podcast episode, email hlnwaco@hln-waco.org or visit the HLN website at www.hlnwaco.org.